Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Yesterday, I did my annual year in review, and then gold cooperated by dropping today, although in after hours it's turning up. I'm not going to go into it in a great detail other than to ask you to check out my show from yesterday and you'll see why I'm so bullish for 2026, and I will be covering that in my Outlook 2026 that I'll either be putting out on the 1st of January or the 2nd, somewhere in there. And silver also got hit a bit today, but after such a spectacular run, nothing to be concerned about there. It did need a bit of profit taking, which took it down to $71 from over 80 earlier in the day. When you have such a massive move in a short period of time, it's kind of reasonable to expect some profit taking, but again, nothing to worry about. I'll be talking about that in my 2026 Outlook report, and the same with copper, because those are the three key metals that I cover. But in my 2025 report, I started it with gold, then I had silver, copper, and then the precious metal stocks and other indicators that I think are bullish for those assets. This year, I'm going to be putting the precious and base metal stocks at the top of my Outlook 2026 report because I think that this is the year that up and down the food chain of the precious and base metal stocks will be the rock stars of 2026. I do believe that we're going to have another great year for gold, silver, and copper, but I think the real value proposition is in the stocks. Now, usually my end of the year report is sort of how I end the year. But this year, what I'm doing a little bit differently is I'm going to have a few days here over the next few days where I'm going to talk about my picks, sort of what happened during the year and what from the time I started picking them, and then what I see happening for them in 2026. So the first company I'm going to talk about, this is one of my top of mind picks. It's a brand new pick that I only started covering on November the 26th. They were trading at 5 cents a share when I started covering them. In a short period of time, they're up to 25 and a half cents today, which was the closing price. And they had news out today, which is kind of unusual. We don't see a lot of news in between Christmas and New Year's, but it was very good news, and it traded quite a bit of volume today. So I wanted to talk about that. But before I do that, I want to put it into context. I need to go through a couple quickly go through a few of their news releases that I've talked about since I started picking them. So the first one was this November 26th news release. 9 Mile Metals announces completion of diamond drill hole WD 2501 and confirms two zones of VMS mineralization at the Wedge project. So and I covered this in my initial coverage. So I don't really want to go into it a lot, but what I did want to point out is look at this thick intersection of almost consistently throughout the hole, solid, massive sulfides throughout that hole. You don't really see that very often to have such a thick intersection of solid, massive sulfides. That got me really excited. This also got me excited because this is the geophysical anomaly. These are the geophysical anomalies that they're drilling in fairly close proximity to an old mine called the Wedge Mine. A great place to look for a new mine is where there's an old mine. And so these were never drilled geophysical anomalies. That hole one cut across two of those geophysical anomalies. And here you can see a better idea of it. Here is a close up of some of the beautiful looking solid massive sulfides throughout those intersections. Okay. So what I really wanted to point out about this is these massive sulfides in the drill core. All right. So there you see the big thick intersection of that. All right. So then I'm going to switch over to their December the 3rd news release. And in that one, 9 Mile Metals announces completion of diamond drill hole WD 2502 and continues to confirm two zones of copper rich VMS mineralization at the Wedge Project drill program. Okay, so let's scroll down. And here is a very beautiful sample because in this you see covellite and bornite. I don't want to get too complicated for you here, folks, but these are the highest grade copper sulfides that are known in the business. All right. And so when you start seeing covellite and bornite in amongst massive sulfides of uh, that's really what you want to see. And here's some more of those massive sulfides. So again, keep this in your mind. This is hole two, and hole two cut across uh, that geophysical anomaly. I believe it's like, oh, here it is. So here's one, and then two was a step out going over in this direction. And they're seeing the right kind of massive sulfides, thick intersections of massive sulfides. There's a lot of chalcopyrite here, and then you see that juicy looking covellite and bornite. All right. So we're getting the context down here. I got one more news release to show you from since I started covering them, which was on the 22nd, so last week. In that one, 9 Mile Metals announces completion of drill hole. Oops, I hit the wrong one here. Sorry. There we go. 9 Mile Metals announces completion of diamond drill hole WD 2502B and continues to confirm two zones of copper rich VMS with 66 meters of mineralization at the Wedge Project. Again, the Wedge Project, past mine, the Wedge mine back in the 1950s and 1960s. Now they're drilling new geophysical anomalies and they're catching, look at more massive sulfides. Here is another good image of the massive sulfides that Gary, their geologist, is showing. So now that you've had those three news releases with the massive sulfides, I wanted to show you this news release from today. Now, 9 Mile Metals announces certified high-grade assay results up to 15% copper from the Wedge project. Now, this was in grab samples, okay? So they're taking these from the surface, but look at these grades. This system is loaded up with lots of high grade, 14.6. I'll let you read that. There's a lot of super bonanza high grade in there. All right. But this is what I really wanted you to see. Look at the massive sulfides. It looks identical to what's in the drill core awaiting assay results at the lab. Another one looks just like what's in the drill core. Another one that looks just like what's in the drill core. Another one that looks just like what's in the drill core. So, why I think that this is so important is I don't usually get too excited about surface samples, but in this case, why I am so excited is the combination of the grades in those samples, but the way it looks identical what's in the drill holes. So you've got close by surface samples around where they drilled, kicking out big grades at the surface. The rock looks identical to what you're seeing in the drill core. So I'm very optimistic that 9 Mile Metals can deliver with the assay results when they announce them. Okay. So now I just before I go into the rest of the companies that I'm going to talk about in this report, I wanted to let you know that I've been using artificial intelligence to help me with my work. Now, as you all know, I'm a very prolific content creator, and therefore I put out a lot of content. And even for myself, it's not that easy for me to get all of my data from the work that I do. And so what AI, artificial intelligence, is excellent at is it grabs all that information and makes my life a lot easier. And so what I've done is, what's going on here? Why is this? Oh, I got it stretched out too far. There we go. Sorry, there's the 2025. I'm actually going to go back a little because I started covering the company closely back around here. Sorry. And so what I'm doing is I'm starting to compile my research files for each company. Now, I haven't quite decided what I'm going to be doing with these research files. So far, they're sort of for my use to make my life a little bit easier. Will probably make them available to my subscribers at my on Substack, as well as my members of my WhatsApp group for Rocks and Stocks News. And then I might have them available for people to purchase. I don't really know. So if you want to make sure you're going to get them, join my WhatsApp group. And the best way to do that is to send me an email at rocksandstocksnews@gmail.com. That's all the words, rocks and stocks news @gmail.com. Let me know you're interested in joining our WhatsApp group. It's a great group. We've got executives of mining companies in there. We've got, investors that from the small retail to larger institutional big investors in there. We have quite an impressive group that is all about talking about rocks and stocks. And so I invite you to join that. There's no charge to join that. And that way you'll get these research report files as I put them out. So, having set all that up and invited you to my WhatsApp group, let's get on to the individual companies that I want to do a review of 2025 and what I see happening for them in 2026. So the first company is one of my unicorn picks. They are a sponsor of my work and have been since back here at about $1 something when I started covering them. Then they went through a golden cross and have had a very bullish trajectory to their 50-day moving average and their 200-day moving average. And in 2025, they started the year at about 260-ish and closed today at $7.55. So some of the things in the research file for them, of course, it's got their ticker symbol. When I originally initiated coverage, which was back in 2023, I put them on the unicorn pick list in March of 2025. So back here somewhere. What else? Uh, Unicorn picks, the current stock price, you can see that. which is $7.55. The overview is that they're a high-grade silver gold developer in Mexico with a silver project, has an exceptional preliminary economic assessment and has done a feasibility study that you know, if you use their case sensitivity analysis, even at a lower price than what we're looking at for gold and silver today, they are trading at, or the IRR would be over triple digits, so over 100%. Very rapid payback of the capex in a matter of a few months. And that capex is 225 million. So, you know, you can extrapolate out what that means for free cash flow if you can use your free cash flow from a few months to pay off the capex. The project is in Mexico, Panuco, and it's not most of their valuation, or sorry, most of what they have been focused on is a couple of the main veins on the project, but I think they're pro, in the process of making a new discovery, and they really have a cluster of epithermal veins, which is what all the big silver mines in Mexico are. Most of them are epithermal veins, and they have a very special situation on their Panuco project. Um, I got some more notes here. I think I've covered them all pretty well. Um, the feasibility study, that's a key thing. They're also doing a bulk sample so they can stockpile that bulk sample material. So when they turn on their mill, they'll be able to pump that through. They also have an exceptionally talented mine builder in Simon Smirlick. Simon built, my audience will remember Las Chispas, which was the big success for us with Silvercrest. That now belongs to Core Mining, which is one of my major mining company picks. And so Simon has worked and built many mines. What made Las Chispas so great was that they built that on time, on budget, and they had to deal with inflation and COVID when they were building that. And so, really talented mine builder and led by Mike Connor, great team. I've talked to Michael Connart in several interviews and also his VP Exploration. Jesus Velador, very talented guy. If you're interested in exploration, whether you're interested in the exploration Vizsla is doing, or it will help give you ideas of what you look for in others when they're exploring these kind of epithermal vein systems. That video I did with Jesus Velador is must see TV, if you will. And I'm going to try and get Simon Smirlick and Mike Connard on an interview early in 2026. So great company, great project, and I think they're on to big things for the company. All right, next up, McEwen Inc. I have been covering McEwen Inc. since the third quarter of 2022. And why I started covering them back here when they were trading at about $4. And I started that coverage through a series of interviews with Rob McEwen that we've continued until recently and we'll do more in the future. Um, why I liked them at that point in time was I didn't think that their Los Azules copper project was really getting the attention that it deserved. And shortly after that, I got very fortunate because shortly after that interview, they brought in key investments by Stellantis, one of the world's top car makers. and also from Rio Tinto has a venture called Newton, and they're doing some really interesting work in recovery of copper. And those two have made significant investments, and that is what sort of generated them to go through this golden cross here, and had done very well. And then in 2025, they kind of softened up in 2024, and then had another golden cross here. And what really drove this was a combination of three key things. One was that they got involved with one of the part of the World Bank, and that group helps them to prepare their company so that it meets all the criteria of the World Bank for potential financing. And they also have a first right of refusal to be part of that financing to build Los Azules into a mine. Shortly after that, they were accepted into the RIGI program. RIGI is a program that incentivizes large investment projects in Argentina, that was put into place when Javier Milei became the leader of the president of Argentina. And it was very encouraging to see McEwen Copper, which owns the Los Azules mine. It's a private company that McEwen Inc. owns 46% of. And so that happened. And then they did a feasibility study. And in the feasibility study, they talked about the key thing that I saw was the internal rate of return. They talk about in the feasibility study all-in costs of $2.11 per pound of copper production. And with copper, I think is going well over $6 and much beyond that over the next few years while they're working towards building the Los Azules mine. I think will be turned Los Azules, which is currently one of the top 10 undeveloped copper projects in the world, that is also in the lowest cost quartile. The world needs a lot more of these big copper projects, but most of those big copper ones in the top 10 are owned by major mining companies, not by junior miners. And so I think that this is why it is my unicorn pick for copper. And obviously got a lot of real great things to say. They've done very well, and I think that they've got a lot of meat left on the bone. I look at their valuation and I look at the metrics that matter to me, based on their copper project and their gold operations. They recently got a permit from they were working on one for a few years in Mexico that they recently got. They're turning on their stock mine in Ontario. They're getting good drill results. They're doing drilling on other projects. So, yeah, all around, I'm a big fan of McEwen Inc., and I think you should take a look at them. All right, my next unicorn pick is Goliath Resources. And I originally started picking Goliath when they were under $1. So right around early 2023. And in since then, they've done very well. They closed today at $2.49. And they are my unicorn exploration gold story. And why is that? Well, they're in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia, which is one of the most prolific high-grade gold jurisdictions in the world. They have the two great ones that I know a fair bit about are Eskay Creek, which was a huge success in the 1980s, and then One that I followed very closely in my report was Pretium Resources and their Brucejack project. I actually think that Goliath's project could be more important than the Brucejack mine that got Pretium bought out at around $19 a share, and I started covering them at about $3 a share. So I think that they've got one of the most important high-grade gold mines or gold project discoveries in the Golden Triangle. It was a grassroots discovery because until, the last decade or so, this project was covered by a glacier that melted and reseeded, and all the snowpack came off of it, and it exposed this really impressive outcrop of rock called sherbet. They drilled underneath that, and they have stacked veins with widespread visible gold over an area that's like about over a kilometer by over a kilometer by 800 meters of vertical relief. And inside of that is a bunch of locations where they've drilled into visible gold. And it's in a series of stacked veins, which are very much like uh, a, like what is the the mine up the Pogo mine up in Alaska. And so it's got all the same geological hallmarks. And yeah, it's a very exciting situation. I think it's very undervalued where it is right now. The reason I say that is I know how hard it is to find multi-million ounce high-grade gold systems, especially a grassroots one that was made from nobody ever drilled it before, and in a jurisdiction like the Golden Triangle. So it's got all great things going for it. I think it's a great opportunity, a great value proposition, and I recommend you take a look at Goliath. All right, Amex Exploration. Amex is a company that I originally started following back in 2018 when they were trading at about 50 cents and they announced their discovery hole. As you can see, it's trading at $4.10, which is almost their all-time high. They had a lot of great success in 2019, 2020, into late 2020. Then it was a tough market for a lot of juniors in the 2021, 2022, 2023. Of late, they've really been breaking out quite significantly. They are a sponsor of my reports, and they are also one I call a unicorn pick for gold development. The key asset they're developing, and when they really started to communicate how they were going to go about the steps, the stages to bring this into production, they started to get a lot of attention. And part of that is because the key asset they will start with is what's called their champagne zone. Now, why the champagne zone is so important is it's currently got a measured and indicated resource of about 800 and almost 850,000 ounces with an average grade of 16.2 grams per ton. Those are very rare these days when you get those 16.2 grams. And inside of that resource at Champagne is also another 150,000 ounces ish of 10 grams per ton. So it's a very high grade system. And what the plan is there is to do first a bulk sample. They're somewhere in the 20 to 40,000 ton range. And then they'll take that bulk sample and have it go through a mill, a nearby mill, which they can do. A lot of companies would like to do that, but they can't. In their case, they can because they're only 5 kilometers outside of the town of Normantel, and they're in the Abitibi, and there's a lot of mills around there that they can ship that bulk sample to. Now, a lot of times when a company does a bulk sample, it's sort of you're trading a dollar for a dollar because you're not optimized your production. It's a bulk sample, okay? But in the when you start doing that with 16.2 gram material, that's a whole different story. Where you would be swapping a dollar for maybe $2 or $3. We don't know yet. The evaluation of that is being done, but I'm very optimistic about that bulk sample for two reasons. One is to get a more representative sized sample into that and see what the average grade is instead of using small diameter drill core, using a big amount of material. Secondly, is they're building a ramp down to the bulk sample location inside the Champagne zone, and that will be a production sized ramp. So it gets them a bulk sample, plus it gets their jump starting the mining of that with this ramp that gets down into the zone. Then they're also doing a preliminary economic assessment to assess toll milling that Champagne zone for the first few years. And because again that it's such a high grade system, that toll milling is a potentially viable situation, and they're doing a preliminary economic assessment. So we should see the economic numbers out of that idea. The concept is to use the profits from that to then build their own mill at the Perron project. And why they want to do that is because there's the Champagne zone, but then there's satellite zones in about a 2 or 3 kilometer radius. They've got four or five other zones that could then be utilized that mill. And so they're going about it in a staged way that is very unique. A lot of companies would like to do it. They can't because they don't have all of these characteristics of Abitibi, beside a town, low cost, high grade, high margin, all of these characteristics. And as I said, as they've been talking about that, they bottomed in 2025 at about 80-ish, 80 cents. And today they're at $4.10. So do your homework on Amex Exploration. All righty. So those were my unicorn picks. Now, another group of picks I call my top of mind picks. And why they are top of mind is because I think that some of these could graduate into my unicorn picks. Okay. And and plus, they're very actively doing work on their projects. And I'm a big fan of their projects. And so, therefore, I think that they've got very bright futures. This Pirate Gold was formerly known as the artist formerly known as Sokoman Minerals is now Pirate Gold. And I've been covering them a lot since I got really lucky. They were trading at about 5 cents here. And I invited Tim Froud on, was at the time the CEO of the company. And I really liked what he's saying. So I bought a good chunk of stock on the Friday. I think it was right here at about 5 cents a share. And then on the Monday, they announced that Denny Laviolette was going to be the new CEO. And I knew Denny Laviolette, because of all the success he had at Newfound Gold, that he basically staked a lot of that ground, made a bunch of their discoveries. Now that project is being put into production. And so they brought in a whole team of mine builders, and Denny was looking for a good exploration project. So 20 kilometers to the west is where Pirate Gold or Sokoman at the time had their Moosehead project. So Denny came in. He wanted more ground on what's called the Valentine Lake Fault. It's one of these deep crustal cracks in the earth that are important for the orogenic gold systems with for the fluids that have the gold in them to make their way up towards the surface. And so it's a look-alike to the next door neighbor, Newfound Gold. In fact, it's very similar to what you saw in Red Lake that made Goldcorp what Goldcorp the fame, Fosterville in Australia, and uh, and Newfound Gold and Pirate Gold are looking for what I think is going to prove to be the Abitibi 2.0, which is in Newfoundland. One of the the one that's going into production in that Abitibi 2.0 story, as far as I'm concerned, is Equinox, which is a pick that I'm going to be updating you on tomorrow. But these guys are one's a developer now, which is Newfound Gold, and then Pirate Gold is got a big chunk of that Valentine Lake fault that is also where the Valentine Lake mine to the south of Pirate Gold's ground is building the Valentine Lake mine of Equinox is building that. And so they've got this big strip, I think it's almost 80 to 100 kilometers of the Valentine Lakes fault. Very important. Denny helped put a lot of that new projects into the company. He also did about a $25 million financing, and now they've started a 50,000 meter drill program. And the company I think is going to be another success like Newfound Gold. And at one time, Newfound Gold had a 2 billion plus valuation when they were having their drilling success early. Then they kind of came down to about $1 billion valuation. Now they're at about a $1.25 billion valuation. And I think when they get that back into production, they'll be back to 2 billion plus. And so Denny Laviolette was really instrumental in that success with Newfound. And I think that this is going to be his next Newfoundland success story. And doing a lot of drilling. And another exciting thing about Pirate Gold is that the guy that helped Denny find a lot of gold at Newfound Gold, Greg Matheson, is also involved with Pirate Gold. And so really exciting exploration ground in a region that's going to become, I think, Abitibi 2.0. And there has already been a lot of high grade gold found at the Moosehead project. But I think what it really needed, and I've said this about the company for a few years, was they really needed to figure it out. And Denny Laviolette and Greg Matheson figured out Newfound Gold, and I think they're going to figure out the Moosehead and surrounding ground. And they're drilling right now, so they have assays pending. A lot of work is going to be happening. Do your homework on Pirate Gold. I'm a significant shareholder of them, and I like their future. All right. Now, the next company is Sterling Metals. Now, Sterling Metals is also, sorry, I'm just going to bring up their stock here. So Sterling Metals was sort of going sideways around 45-ish cents average. And then look at this big move here. Why that big move happened was because they made a discovery of very high grade copper that got a lot of attention. Then they were doing a financing and awaiting the remaining assays from that drilling that got them this big discovery. So now they should have those. I would hope that they'll have some assay results coming out in January. And then not long after that, they can crank up the drilling again because they recently did I think it was $14 million financing. Just give me a second here. Let me see if it's in the notes. Did my AI assistant find it? No. I got to give that AI assistant some trouble there because it's got to get me those kind of information. But yeah, it was around, I think around 14 million. Do your homework on that. But they raised up a bunch of money to do the drilling on the project. And I am very excited about this project. There is not a lot of high grade copper projects, exploration discoveries being made. These guys have a very large land package. I've done an interview with their CEO, Matt. Matt, oh, Matt. I'm sorry, Matt. Your last name is escaping me at the moment. It shouldn't because I've interviewed him a few times. Uh, Nonetheless, and yeah, this what really impresses me is the kind of high the minerals that the sulfides that they're finding are the highest grade sulfide copper sulfides, and they're finding a bunch of it, and I think that this is going to merge to be a very important discovery. It's near the town of Batchewana Bay, so it's got lots of infrastructure there. And yeah, that's that's the Sterling Metals story. And I think you want to take a look at Sterling Metals because they have a lot of assays pending, and then they'll start cranking up their drilling. Another company, the next company is Kirkland Lake Discoveries. They also have a very large land package, and this one is near the town of Kirkland Lake. And Kirkland Lake is what you call elephant country. There are huge deposits there, gold, base metals, and they're all what are called intrusion related. So these are big chunks of magma that come up, intrude from deeper, and they've got a 17-kilometer intrusion there. And they've done some drilling at the contact between the country rock and the intrusion, which is really important area to look. And they made a discovery, and that's what helped them run from like, what was it, down here at a few less than a nickel, all the way up to 40 some cents. I picked up this story when they were trading at about a dime. They closed today at 33 cents. They also did a significant raise of money up here when they, right around here somewhere. And then they got started. They're using that money to do their drilling. They've got just a project is rich with drill hole targets. I think they could make more than one important discovery on their project. And then they recently got another big land package to the south of their main claim block. And, what excites me about that is that, well, first of all, that they got a chance to get it. Kirkland Lake is one of those camps that if you got a good project, they go like this. And they were able to snag that project. And what's exciting about it is most of the drilling on it had been done fairly close to the surface. All right. And but these orogenic gold systems, they have deep roots, right? And right below that, so most of the drilling has been done within the first 300 meters, and the zone is about a 500,000 ounces close to surface. But right below that zone or that resource is this big geophysical anomaly. It almost looks like a ice cream cone. The ice cream is what is the resource, and the cone is below it, and there's a big geophysical anomaly there, and it's all saying drill here, drill here, drill here. I'm really looking forward to them drilling that. They're going to stay focused on their what I call the Easter egg, which is this huge 17-kilometer intrusion. They also got the potential to make an orogenic gold discovery to the east of that. They got VMS to the south of it, and now they got this new project that I'm really excited about. And so Kirkland Lake Discoveries has a bunch of money in the till. They're doing a bunch of drilling right now. They've got assays pending. Lots is going to be announced in the early part of 2026. So it's a good time to do your homework on Kirkland Lake Discoveries. All right. I'm moving through here pretty good, actually. I'll try to, what I'll do is in the notes of this, I'll put the times that I start talking about each individual company. All right, next up is Borealis Mining. Borealis is a company that I actually started covering before they went public over here. Then they went public, they had a nice little run, and then they had this cup and handle and onwards and upwards from there. They are a sponsor, and I'm a shareholder of the company. So keep those biases in mind. But what's really caused this Golden Cross and this movement is that the company has started a staged process to bring the old Borealis mine back into production in Nevada. They're a Nevada-focused emerging junior gold miner, and the Borealis mine was it's actually quite well known. It was in production in the past when uh, gold prices were much lower. My understanding of the history was that they rushed into production, didn't do it right, ran into economic problems, and then they went bankrupt, and another company called Waterton bought it out, and then kept it has all the milling infrastructure or all the mine infrastructure there. It's got a tailings facility. It's got a stockpile. It's got an ADR plant. It's got all the infrastructure to mine gold and create gold doré bars on the property. And it was all kept in good standing. And then prior to them going public, Waterton was restructuring their company, and Rob McEwen decided, while the company was private, to take out all of Waterton's shareholdings in Borealis Mining. They got shares in order to for in Borealis Mining when they vended the Borealis mine into Borealis Mining. And so prior to going public, Rob McEwen bought out Waterton. Now Rob McEwen is their largest shareholder, I think at about 15%. Eric Sprott owns about 10%. They've got a really good share structure and a really good key people involved with the management and board of directors and shareholders. And it's got a really bright future. So how they started out in the stage process was there was still residual material that was on the leach pad that they processed a little bit of gold out of the leach pad, Then they had the stockpile that had never been leached. So they brought in a contract miner to put that material onto the leach pad, and that is having its first treatment of leaching, and they've started to pour some gold from that, and that process will last probably somewhere into the first half of 2026. And in January, they're about to start um, processing material from inside the pits that were basically left with meat left on the bone, so to speak. And they were permitted. And so now they're starting in January, they're starting to bring material out of the pits to put that on the leach pad, and that's their stages, and then increasing it. They're also doing exploration to find new pits. They acquired another junior that has a project, Sandman, that has about a 500,000 ounces, but very low cost and high margin ounces, and it needed an ADR plant. And so they were able to get that asset at a very discounted price. And now they can ship that concentrate. They don't have to ship all the material, just the concentrate from there down to the ADR plant at the Borealis mine. And then they got another project called Big Balds that's quite exciting as well. It's in the these Sandman and the Big Balds is near some of the well, one of them's near the Sleeper mine, which is a really high grade, really famous Nevada gold mine, and they might have the southern part of that district. And it needs a lot more drilling, as does Big Balds, which is near the Bald Mountain mine. And so lots of good ground and a good story to grow into a junior gold miner, and then bigger than that. Part of uh, the guidance that they have is the founder of Kinross, Bob Buckins, is the chairman of Borealis. So he knows how to sort of build a company from nascent to a much bigger miner. And so Borealis has a lot of great things going on. A new junior gold miner in Nevada, and that's the Borealis story. Foran is a company that I'm really optimistic about because I always like to have some companies that are building mines. They've gone through the Lassonde development discount window, about to turn the mine on and then go up the right side of the Lassonde curve. And Foran Mining is one of those companies. Now, they had some growing pains at the construction of their mine, which brought the stock down to like 250, 270, which is where I picked it. And since then, it's become a great pick. They're up to $4.89. They have finished, I think they're getting close to 80% finished their mine. It's a VMS mine, and uh, it's in Saskatchewan. It's called the McElvena Bay Mine. It's a very exciting project because it's going to be a cash machine going up the right side of the Lassonde curve. I think it's important to note that Pierre Lassonde himself is a significant shareholder of Foran, as is Agnico Eagle, my number one major gold mining pick. Now, why I think Agnico is such an important part of this story is because one of the company making assets for Agnico Eagle uh, is a VMS system, much like what, on a geological basis, much like what Foran has. And so for them to be a significant shareholder and Pierre Lassonde, I think they've done a lot of the good homework for us. And I really think that this is going to be a great company that goes up the right side of the Lassonde curve, and they are expecting to start to pour some or produce some copper in in February and get it into commercial production in the first half of 2026. And so, yeah, lots of great things going on with Foran. And I think you should take a look at Foran. Just let me do something here before I move to my next company. Okay, so the next company is Newfound Gold Corp. And earlier, when I was talking about Pirate Gold, I mentioned them. And basically, I believe that Newfoundland is going to be the Abitibi 2.0, and I think it will be a production center for high-grade gold for many years into the future, decades actually. The biggest pillar of my stool, if you will, my Abitibi 2.0 stool, is Equinox, and they're bringing the Valentine Lake mine, which is south of Pirate Gold, into production as we speak. The next company that's going to go into production will be Newfound Gold Corp. Well, they're kind of already in production because they bought a nearby company that already has production. But the really big one that is the company maker for them is the Queensway project in Newfoundland, and it's on another of these important cracks in the earth, these deep crustal cracks that are important for these orogenic gold systems for the fluids to make their way up. Now, earlier when I was talking about Pirate Gold, I talked about Denis Laviolette. Denis Laviolette recognized the potential for the Appleton Fault to be one of these important deep crustal cracks for orogenic gold systems. So he staked up a bunch of the ground, which then went into Newfound Gold. Then they drilled it. They had huge success. Company was a 2 billion plus company at one time. Currently is about a $1.25 billion company. Of course, that's Canadian. And now they're bringing that Queensway project into production. And it's very exciting. It's a development project, but they got a huge portion of the important deep crustal cracks of the Appleton Fault. And so it's a combination. They've got zones already that they're going to bring into production, high grade open pit. You don't hear that combination very often. So they're open pitting this, and they got super high grades in there. I mean, a lot of open pit mines are like a half a gram. These are 10, 20, 30 higher bonanza grade in these pits. And so this is the making of a free cash flow machine. So uh, down at Valentine Lake, Equinox is going to have a low cost, high margin, money making machine of a mine. Newfound Gold is going to have one. And then my Pirate Gold, where Denis Laviolette is now the CEO, I think they could be the next up and comer, if you will. And so Newfound Gold, strangely enough, sometimes when companies put out resources, the market's expecting it to be, let's say, 5 or 10 million ounces. When you do these resources where you're confining them to what you can actually mine, there's a lot more gold in this system, but you got to confine it to what you're going to mine because they want to do preliminary economic assessment and then bring it towards production. And you can't use one of these, what I call arm waving resource estimates. So they got hammered down quite significantly. I picked them up. I think they were trading at about a buck and a half when I picked them, well before this golden cross here. And now they closed today at $4.05. And I think they're onwards and upwards as they move the Queensway project towards production. And I think it's going to be a phenomenal mine. When you can open pit those kind of grades that they're going to be mining there, and I advise you to do your homework on that because very high grade material there is going to be open pit mined, and that will be a money making machine when they get that into production. And so as I said, I think Newfoundland is going to be the Abitibi 2.0, and my three picks to be part of that is Equinox, that's bringing their Valentine Lake into full commercial production in 2026. Then the Newfound Gold is moving theirs towards production, plus doing a lot of exploration work. And then the Pure Explorer is Pirate Gold, which is to the north of the Valentine Lake mine. And yeah, take a look at Newfound Gold. All right, next company is Norsemont. Now, Norsemont is in Chile, and Chile recently went through an election, and they have a new president who I think is cut from the same cloth as Javier Milei in Argentina, who's really been opening that country up for mining. And so Norsemont has a past producing mine with a 2.7 million ounce resource. That resource is within the first or first 100 meters from surface. So it's all contained within 100 meters of surface. And it's permitted. They got a permitted facility there that they need to, where they can produce the gold right on the property. Um, and they're drilling right now. Now, what's also exciting is that in addition to that resource, you see, when they drilled it in the past, it was not optimized drilling. What I mean by that is what got the gold into that near surface layer is vertical bodies or veins that brought the gold up. And almost all of the drilling was done with vertical holes. Okay. So if you've got a vertical hole here or vertical body here, and right beside it you drill it, you might get nothing. But move over 50 meters or drill like this, and you're going to catch it. And so one of the parts of their plan is to go into that resource area and do angled holes that cuts across two, three, four of those vertical drill holes, and then also go underneath it because these kind of epithermal veins tend to go much deeper than 100 meters. And so I'm really excited to see I think they can easily increase that, dramatically increase the resource with more optimized drilling with angled holes cutting across it. I kind of had an influence in that game plan, and with Dave Flint, their geologist, and he and I are on the same page that this needed optimized drilling into the resource and go deeper. But they also have a series of breccia pipes. So these are come off of porphyries, and the epithermal veins are also associated with a porphyry system. Usually the porphyry system is deeper, and then the veins come off of it. And also coming off of those porphyries can be these breccia pipes, okay? And so even in the breccia pipes, those were not optimally drilled and they're minimal drilling. They need a lot more drilling. And again, they need angled holes cutting across the entire pipe and then deeper and deeper. And this is a great way to search for the porphyry that they're coming off of. Sometimes when companies are looking for porphyries, they use geophysics, which is kind of challenging because, these porphyries can be deeper, poking deep holes. It can be challenging, but if you can follow the breccia pipe coming off a porphyry, now you're following a mineralized system to what it came off of. That's very exciting. And all of this past mining and the resource and the porphyries are all on a permitted mine ground. And what's interesting is that there's a domed feature that all of the resource and the uh, breccia pipes are all contained with. And it's like something from deeper pushed that up and created this dome-like feature in the rocks. And that, I think, could be the porphyry below it push those rocks up to create that dome. And what they're seeing so far, which is very substantial. I mean, it could be brought into production in a matter of like a year or two. Once they get all their they got a few more permits that they have to get, environmental related and maybe some water related permits. But it's like something that can be brought into production in the short term and be very profitable because there's a lot of gold in that layer that's like in the first 100 meters layer. And then they got the breccia pipes and they got the potential for porphyry. So it's a great project in what is a country that now has a really pro-mining government in place. In fact, the guy who's in charge of the Ministry of Mines, if you will, has said that in the past that he wants to bring that the permitting process down by 75% faster than it currently is. And so great project, great jurisdiction, permitted mine facility, past mining, and I really like the potential for Norsemont in all the drilling that they're doing right now and will continue to do, as well as moving it towards production. So take a look at Norsemont, which I picked around 50-ish cents, and it's doubled since then. But I didn't pick them because of a double potential. I think they got the potential to be a much larger company with a 500 million or more valuation. Lately, as they've been getting financing together and started their drilling, they've been going sideways along the 50-day moving average, but I think they're primed and ready for a significant breakout and start making new 2, 3 year highs in the stock. All right, next up is BlackRock, and they're a new addition. I picked them. Ooh, where did I pick them? I picked them back here when they were trading at about 35 cents. They're now trading at $1.39, and they have one of the highest grade undeveloped silver projects. They have the highest grade undeveloped silver project in the world. It's in Nevada. It's already got to that threshold that is a rule of thumb in the silver space where you want to get to about 100 million ounces. And the basics are, well, with 100 million ounces, you could be producing 10 million ounces a year for 10 years. That's the gist of that rule of the thumb. And it's in the Tonopah district, and Tonopah was an important silver mining district in Nevada. The other one is Comstock, which is like the granddaddy, and then this is the grandmother. And it was instrumental in why the state is, everybody thinks of Nevada for gold, but it's actually called the Silver State. And the Tonopah region was part of the reason that it is called the Silver State. So they got the western side of that district, and they have done a preliminary economic assessment that looks really good. They've got this resource that's met that 100 million ounce threshold. It's high grade. It would be low cost to produce because it's literally almost right in the city of Tonopah. Their CEO talks about how you could go to the Burger King, I think he says, and drive and still eat your food at the property while it's hot. So it's got road access. It's right beside a town. Would be low cost to bring it into production. Very profitable because it's high grade and low cost. Really healthy margin. I think it will be a mine of the future. And I think that it's the kind of a kind of project that a company the size of BlackRock could bring into production. You see, a lot of times mines have to get mined by bigger companies because they have a much higher capital cost to bring them into production. In their case, they have the kind of project that a junior could develop themselves. Now, they'll need to bring in some key people that are mining experts. They got an exploration expert on the team already, and their CEO, he was, before he took over as the CEO of the company a few years ago, he had one of these headhunter businesses where he would go out and find key people for large mining companies. And so he's got a Rolodex there that he can go out and build the team of mine builders. So I think there's a very good chance that Blackrock Silver could bring this into production. And I hope they do because we need a lot more projects like this in the silver space. It's purely silver and gold. And so they've got that great combination and high grade, low capex, fast payback, all the right bells and whistles. And that's why I like Blackrock Silver and think you should take a look at them. Okay, now a brand new pick for me is West Red Lake Gold. And it was trading at about right about here at about 80 cents when I picked them. They closed today at $1.06. Or sorry, it was actually in here that I picked them around 85 cents. And since then, they've broken out quite dramatically to now over $1.06. And why I picked them was I had been watching this project actually when it was owned by Pure Gold, who failed on this mine because Madsen mine because they rushed it into production. They didn't have enough drill hole density to really understand these very high grade orogenic gold systems. And in Red Lake, you got to drill a lot of drilling to really understand. And they kind of jumped ahead of that, got into financial problems, went bankrupt. West Red Lake grabbed the project out of bankruptcy at a really inexpensive price. And now they've done all that extensive drilling so that they understand the mineralization and they're actually producing as of now, but they're planning on bringing it into full commercial production in January. Now, I held off making them a pick, even though I had been following this project for years. And then what brought me over the top to make them a pick was when I heard an interview of their CEO. And he mentioned that they were getting to about 7,000 ounces in the final quarter or somewhere around that ballpark. And I know that they're planning when they get it into commercial production, they're planning about 9,000 ounces per quarter. So let's say about 40 to 50,000 ounces per year. So I could see that they were about three-quarters of the way there, and they're not yet at full commercial production. They are, it sounds like they're going to bring it into full commercial production in January. And recently I did an interview with their investor relations vice president, Gwen Preston. And I recommend you take a look at that interview because Gwen and I had a really good talk about the prospects of the company. And Gwen is I call her the artist formerly known as the resource maven. She did what I do. And then she left that business to become the VP of Investor Relations for West Red Lake Gold. And so we did a really great interview just in the last 10 days or so. And I think it'll give you a really good understanding of what they're doing to bring the Madsen mine back into production in a successful way. We talked about the zones that they're going to be mining, all the work that they've done to get it to be a successful mine. And they're right on the verge of doing that. And I think it's the kind of company that can go up the right side of the Lassonde curve. Usually I pick those when they're in that sweet spot just before they start producing, even before they start full commercial production. But in this case, I was able to wait until they were almost at full commercial production and were already producing gold and make them a pick at not much higher than their well about uh, uh, maybe 40 cents higher than their 52-week low kind of thing. And I think now it's ready to go up the right side of the Lassonde curve. And in that interview I did with Gwen Preston, we talked about these issues on all the moving parts, if you will, for West Red Lake Gold. And I invite you to check out that interview. All right. My final company that I'm going to talk about today is Earthlabs. Now, I want to put a little bit of context onto this because over the last couple years, I've been talking a lot about how I think that gold or that the mining sector needs to do a better job in digital marketing. And Earth Labs has the potential to be a beneficiary of that when more companies start to get serious in mining about digital marketing. Now, why do I say that? Well, they own some really important platforms for digital marketing. One of those is called CEO.ca. And this is kind of like the Twitter of the mining space. So investors go on there to talk about mining companies. And in addition to CEO.ca, they also own the Northern Miner. And the Northern Miner was the Bible of mining in Canada and throughout the world for over 100 years. They own that. They also own Canadian Mining and another one that I always forget the name of. And but they've got these platforms that I think will be beneficiaries of the push that I see coming for miners to get more, roll up their sleeves and get more serious about digital marketing. So that's one reason that I picked them. The second reason, and the real driver of the company's growth potential, is that they also have a fund or a venture capital kind of investments into junior explorers and developers. In fact, some of the companies I already talked about, Newfound Gold, Borealis, Sterling Metals, Pirate Gold, another of my picks called Southern Cross, they own shares in that company. Now, it took them a couple years of building up that asset base, and how they got the funds to do that is this company was into, uh, with Denis Laviolette, artificial intelligence. And they were using artificial intelligence in the exploration business. It was part of the success of Newfound Gold. And they sold that to ALS, which is a large lab that does assaying work and other contracting work like that. So they sold that. When they sold that, they started putting money into other juniors, and created this fund. Well, until about the summertime of this year, those smaller companies down the food chain of the mining business didn't really enter the bull market in gold until the summer of 2025. And in the third quarter of 2024, their portfolio made about $1 million in profit. Their third quarter of 2025, that jumped up to $23 million. So why did they have such a big jump in their profits off of their portfolio? Was because the juniors that they are invested in started to mature. They started to join the gold bull market. They still have big positions in a lot of great companies. And I think that that's going to, now that that portfolio is starting to mature, I think it's going to be the engine of their growth to become a much larger company. Now, the digital marketing is kind of the bread and butter. It'll look after the cost of being a public company, having the staff that they do, running it, and I think it will turn a significant profit going forward. Then the real engine, or the meat and potatoes, is this fund that is now starting to kick in. And so I think that for a generalist investor that doesn't want to do all the homework, and it takes a lot of homework to invest in these junior and developers. I mean, I've been at this for 32 years in the mining business as a consultant, and 20 years as a market commentator. So I know it's not, you got to do a lot of homework. And for the generalist investors that are starting to come into gold, silver, copper, and the precious and base metal stocks, especially down the food chain into the to the explorers and the developers, which are really crucial. And we need more success in that end to help out the long-term supply chain. They're not easy to do your homework on. And so, for a generalist that wants exposure to those kind of companies, Earthlabs is a great way for a generalist to do that. And so, I am very optimistic about Earthlabs over the short term, mid-term, and long term. And I think you should do your homework, because they are still trading at a significant discount to the value of their assets. Okay. And so as we get into a more bullish market, I think that they'll get closer to their net asset value, instead of trading at a significant discount to it. And so I've presented Earth Labs in the past that it's like you're buying a dollar's worth of assets for like 40 cents. And I think the dollars could turn into $2 or $3. So it's got a lot of torque in it for investors that want exposure to the junior side of the space, the explorers and the developers. And that's why I think you should take a look at Earth Labs. As always, I do not make buying or selling recommendations. I am merely an idea generator. Before you make any investment decisions, you have to talk to your financial advisors. You need to do your homework. I'm trying to help you find good companies to do that homework on. And when I do find them, I tend to stick with them and keep people informed on how they're progressing. And today I brought you some of my picks. Tomorrow I'm going to bring you another batch, and the next day I'll bring you another batch. And all of these companies, I think they're going to have very good years in 2026. But as always, I emphasize the do your homework part because I think well-informed investors are the most successful investors, and that's regardless of what sector you're in. I certainly have seen it in my 32 years of working in the mining business that it's those people that do the homework that are the most successful. So I always want my audience to be successful, and I think that's a key way to do that. So do that homework and stay tuned for my show that I'll have for you tomorrow, and then 2 more days of updating my picks, and then the Outlook 2026 report. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.